Hello, and welcome to Monumental, where we sit down with entrepreneurs, leaders, visionaries, and big thinkers making monumental change. Here's your host, Evan Holiday.
Welcome to Monumental, everybody. I'm your host, Evan Holiday, and today we have on the show with us a good friend of mine and now officially we're business partners on a deal together. So we'll dive into that. But I'm excited to have on the show with you all, Jason Yarusi. Jason, how you doing, man?
Doing awesome. How are you?
Doing fantastic, especially after we got that deal closed last week.
That's right. Good. We've had a good start to the deal. Good conversations earlier today. I'm excited for the next steps here.
Yes, likewise. So we'll dive into that a little bit later on in the podcast. But a little bit about Jason for everyone listening. So Jason is an active real estate syndicator investor. In 2016, he founded Yarusi Holdings, a multifamily investment firm currently with over 800 units. He also hosts the Jason and Pili Project, a YouTube channel and podcast that sets the foundation for building mental fortitude, growing wealth, and improving health. And if you follow Jason online, you know that he is a student of what he preaches. So I'm excited to dive into that. He also has a monthly meetup, the New Jersey Multifamily Formula Club, and has over 2,000 members that focuses on real estate syndication. So with that, Jason, let's just dive right in and go to a little bit of your background and how you got to where you are today.
So it was a traditional route that was not traditional at all. So of course, went to college and, I had a conversation earlier today is that, so much when we're younger, we feel predicated that our decisions, right? We have to define these decisions. Like I have to choose the college to go to, and then once I'm there, I got to choose, my major, and that's going to set on my course of life. Right. So, I ended up going to college really just based on like sports, right? It was more in line. I had good grades and went there, but you find when you're there, I didn't have a draw to one major. I had a girlfriend at the time. Her mom said, "Well, you're good in business. Why don't you try business finance?" And I went that direction, but just throughout college, just knew I didn't want to go that direction. So when I left school, ended up just doing a lot of different things. So I worked in the arts, I traveled, I lived in Europe, working over there for a bit. And then I came back living in New York City, which a lot of people do, is I started working in the restaurant, nightlife, hospitality industry. So I worked at a number of bars. I worked at one of the largest bars in New York City and helped really grow the revenues there 25 times. And then I opened up a brewery, opened and sold that, and opened up a restaurant there that's still there today. And throughout that, Hurricane Sandy happened in New Jersey back in 2012. And it was one of these moments here where it created so much damage here. And lo and behold, my dad had this business, still has this business, where he lifts and moves houses. He had this crazy idea years ago that he would go into this work here that was heavy construction, that he would start lifting houses. And you could lift houses because of poor foundations, flooding reasons, setback reasons, a number of different things. So he was in this business, Hurricane Sandy happens, and all of a sudden he's flooded with work because tens of thousands of homes now have to be lifted on the East Coast to meet FEMA guidelines, hopefully avoid having massive insurance hikes for their flood insurance, and just to make them hopefully not flood again. So my brother, who was working for me at the time in New York City, and myself, we moved out to New Jersey. And I had just actually met, Pili and I had known each other since 2003, but we had really just gotten together at that time. So she moved out here with me and we started working for the family business. And we went from my dad doing about 12 projects a year to that first year doing about 150, with the next stage being about 200, 250 at the peak. And that's lifting houses. So we were really ramped up that business, really flowing through. But one of the things that stood out the entire time was that we love helping dad. We love helping the family business, but we wanted to do a thing that was going to give us our time back. And what we found was what we were doing is just service businesses, like anything, you have to work to get paid, right? So if you stop, there's nothing that comes from there. So we started working in this business to find what we wanted to do second to this. So we thought we picked what was a logical step, and that we went into real estate. But we started doing things like Pili got a real estate license. I started flipping houses and doing that magnitude. And lo and behold, we just created more jobs for ourselves, right? So now we have the construction business, we have another job, and all of a sudden it feels like we're working like 25 hours a day if they were there. That led us into investing out of state. And we started, we met a friend who was doing this in another state and just was doing it successfully just by buying houses and having a team in place. A lot of our experience has been managerial over the years. So we started doing that, and it just occurred to us that we could do a lot without having to be actively involved day to day, active and a part of using our hands to get the work done. Having the success we did with these 2 and 3 units, it just dawned on me that we would be able to do a lot if we could do this on a bigger point, right? Because it's only scalable for you to buy so many single family houses or so many duplex or triplexes. But if we could do this for 20 units, 50 units, 100 units, well, the opportunity was there for us to just really create value and then benefit across the board from economies of scale. So Pili and I talked about this. It was I think more of a mental hurdle for her at that point. But once we talked it through and went through a point, we sold all those properties, went all into large multifamily. And large multifamily, it was we didn't just step out and just buy a property. We just started finding everyone around us who was doing this successfully and seeing how they were doing it, understanding the steps they do and do successfully, and then started to mimic those steps. So we did that aligned, and we went from selling those 3 units, so buying 2-3 units, to buying our first one, a 94 unit, back in in May of 2017.
Wow, I love it. That's quite the story, and it's funny. This is why I love podcasting, because here we are partnering on a deal, and I had no idea that you were like in the restaurant business in New York. To start with, like, that's so cool, and that shows just like your hustle and your story throughout is constantly learning a business, evolving, adapting, growing, and taking it to the next level and saying, hey, I've grown, I've learned this business, I've learned this position, whatever it is, and said, hey, this was a good stepping stone to get one step closer to where maybe the next step is, and eventually that led you into multifamily investing. And getting that time back, and getting that time and financial freedom, and being able to unlock the power of economies of scale with multiple doors.
It's like from action, you understand where the opportunity lies, but you also understand where you don't want to be. And too many times in life, people will choose not to take action because they're worried about what could potentially happen. But it's more beneficial to try something to eliminate it than to think about if it could work or couldn't work and never started it at all. So we tried, we've done a lot of things, some successfully, some not successfully. And for us, we've continued to build off that and learn. So, what I do today, if I was to say, 10 years ago, if I did tell myself then that I was doing this, I probably wouldn't be ready for it at that time. But I built these experiences that really gave me the basis, the foundation to grow into what we're doing now.
Yeah, I love that. And how did your and Pili's lives cross? How did you guys meet?
Same thing. She was actually running this crazy bar called the Frying Pan. That used to be this very busy nightlife place. On some days we'd have about 25,000 people to come through, and wow. It was nuts. I mean, you would have all kinds of different parties. It would stay open till about 5 a.m. And I had come back from working in Europe and met a friend, and we went over. This place was on the water, and we went over there and started, got hired to do construction at the bar. And Pili was running it, and her and I first met. And we were both on our own paths, both in our own relationships. And so we're worlds apart. And throughout the course of the next 10 years, she stayed for a bit, and then she went to LA, and she went out there to be an actress. She was doing Shakespeare in the City, went out there to be an actress, then came back to New York, and then went back to Hawaii, and then came back to New York. And 10 years later, we found our way, right? So we actually started working together before we were ever in a relationship. But where that comes into play is, we get that question a lot, is how can you guys learn to work together? Well, we knew how, we had the working environment before we ever had the relationship. So it was almost that the relationship was the new piece. And for most relationships where they go awry when they try to work together, is you forget to ask the other person, is this what you want? Right. And even on real estate side, one person will say, well, I'm doing all this, it's going to help our future and all this. And the partner may not ask the question, or maybe the spouse who's not doing real estate, where that person says, yeah, that's great, but you have this like a young family and you're gone, 20 hours a day. So we never see you. So I get it, but they haven't had that connection. So Pili and I we've been able to find a way to constantly communicate on what we're doing. And then align on our purpose, right? And that allows us to have the great relationship we have and have the life that we're continue to work to have.
I love it. And in speaking of which, like I mentioned earlier, like I feel like you and Pili both are great examples of people who embody what they speak and embody what their principles are. And I think that's really important to highlight here on Monumental, because I think that's something a lot of us struggle with. Is we set out to be this ideal person in our mind of who we want to be, or a spouse that we want to be, but what you think of and what you see ideally doesn't always come out into reality. But just at least what I've gathered, it seems like you guys do an excellent job of that. And so could you elaborate on how our listeners could also be able to try to embody and live out their principles as best as possible?
Don't overcomplicate it. There's most times when we set up for our goals or our future, we want it to be complicated for the sake of it being complicated, but ultimately it comes down to really just being basic in the point here. So what is it that I really want? What is it that's giving me the purpose to get there? And how is that going to benefit me and others around me if I get it? And conversely, if I don't get it, how is that going to affect me? And if it's not huge, that's not going to affect you on the back end. It's probably not desirable enough to you. It's like looking on Instagram and saying, oh, that's an awesome car that dude has. I want that car because if I have that car, I'll be happy for the rest of my life. But there's no substance there. So if you have that car or you don't have that car, it's really not going to add value to your life because of that. A lot goes with relationships, is that Pili and I, we have our bad days too, right? And having the partner there that's aligned for the purpose allows one person to say, okay, cool. All right, you've had your moment. Like, how can we make this better? What do we need to do right now to transition? And when we're thinking about who we want to be and being our best self, that's the end goal. So like, that's where you want to get to, but maybe that's not where you are now, but it's embodied in you, but you have to take that first step. So getting in shape, right? People say, why don't I lose 20 pounds? And you just focus on 20 pounds. Well, that means nothing until you take that first step of, okay, today I'll eat 10% less, or today I'll get up and walk around the block, or today I won't watch shows to midnight and I'll get a better night's sleep so I can get up in the morning and lift weights. You don't take that next step because you're thinking about the end goal, right? So I want to climb to the peak of the mountain, but it's so outside you can't encompass what that is. So you don't think, well, what would be our first step? Well, maybe I need to get hiking boots or something as simple as that. So because we want to make it complicated.
Yeah. I think you're spot on. Is how to deconstruct your goals and any sort of principle that you want to live by and become and embody. First, see yourself in those shoes. See yourself being that person now, and then also seeing, okay, well, don't overthink things. Say, how can I just take one little step a day? How can I make it easier on myself? Because I know that it's tough for me to wake up in the morning. So I'll put my phone on the other side of the bedroom. Little things like that just help push the needle so you can get a little closer to where you want to be.
It's said more people fear success than they do failure. And if you think about that, why would that be, right? And ultimately, it's because you can identify with what you have currently, right? And even if it's not the best place to be, but since you probably haven't ever had that success or that greatness that you want to get to, you can't mentally grasp that. So instead of going for that, because it's something that you can't really mentally grasp, even if it could make your life 100 times better, you'll decide to stay where you are because it's somehow safer in that environment where you're not happy because it's known compared to stretching out into the unknown.
And how have you all been able to continue stretching out into the unknown and continuing to grow, continuing to grow the business and personally, and while growing your family?
So there's never a balance, right? So at times, like I can't balance my health, my business, and my kids, because there's no such thing, right? You have to push and pull. So the things that you can break outside your comfort zone is just do that. Next time that you feel inclined to say no to something, say yes right away. First actions, do 3 things that are most important to your day first. Don't let it go on. Sleep on the floor tonight. Even though you have a beautiful bed, sleep on the floor for the next 3 nights. Not because of anything else, but because you can do it. And when you sleep in that bed, you'll learn how great certain things are we have. Take cold showers, get up at 2 a.m. for no other reason for that point. Call 5 people who you admire, ask them how they do it. Anything that breaks outside your comfort zone, don't think about it, just do it, because it will allow you to grow. Things that seem hard are only hard because we haven't tried them yet. So like my son trying to learn to ride a bike, the first day, you would think like the world's going to end with him trying to get on this bike. But by day 2, he's off riding down the street, right? Just because it becomes something that now you've gotten over that threshold of fear, and really just continue to push the narrative. But that narrative just starts with that first step, right? I'm doing a 100-mile run, another one on Saturday. It's a virtual one. And
wow,
if I was to say, I'm going to do 100 miles, I mean, it's mentally draining, right? Because I'm thinking about, here I am at the 100-mile mark. I think through the race, but nothing happens without me taking a step. That's it. So I just have to keep moving, right? So the first step, right? Don't worry about the full thing all the way throughout, because that's where we fail with the plan. Getting outside your comfort zone is just thinking, okay, what's one thing I can stretch today? And it doesn't mean that you have to go swim with sharks, but if you're not good at swimming, maybe go try and swim 1 lap. Just get your mind ready to take on that next step. Preparing yourself in a way that you can have a clear vision during the day. So even we'll talk later about morning rituals, but getting up and having mindfulness in the morning, so you can now be clear with what you want. But it's just creating the right agenda for yourself, and then not sitting on the sideline. You may not get the result you want with action, but doing or being inactive will never produce anything you want.
So I want to dive into the 100-mile run real quick.
Sure.
So tell me what inspired you to do that, and what has that been like training for that?
It's actually no different than I usually train. When anybody who's run a marathon, you can find like a marathon roadmap, and generally you'll do a couple 20-mile runs like closer to the race time. Well, it's not like for this, you'll do like a couple 80-mile runs throughout. It becomes, I first heard about these. When I heard about these, I was like, I'm in, I'll try it, and I got to, my first race was a 51-mile race. And I had a plan, but then my plan was run the uphills, because I'm strong on the uphills, and don't get my feet wet. Mile 3 was so steep up into we were up in Ithaca, New York. It was so steep you couldn't run it. And then mile 4 was the first of 4 rivers that I had to run through. I probably could have looked at the course and figured this out, but I generally don't like to do that because it sets the narrative. So the plan after that was, okay, new plan, no plan, right? So the plan, because it becomes mental.
Plan. I like it.
Yeah, it becomes mental, right? So this race was supposed to be on the border of Canada on Saturday. Turns out now it's virtual. So I was like, all right, well, I have the choice just to phone it in and say, I'm not going to do it, or okay, let's just do it. So there's been new challenges to this one. I'm going to run on pavement for 100 miles. I'm going to now, I was trying to do a one where I could run a big loop, but it was like, I couldn't stay off the highways by that point. I was going to be like major highways trying to run. That probably wouldn't go over well at like 3 a.m. So I'm running a 20-mile loop. I have a couple of people joining me. There's not like an aid station set up. So there's more mental capacity for that. And that's what the race is. And it's a lot like life, right? So it will be my body. And then it will be my mind in that direction. My body first, and then my mind is going to be, because my body will keep going. Generally, there's not many points where my body's like, I just can't do it anymore. I'm done. It's my mind saying, I think you had enough. Hey, why don't you just stop here? Yeah. And it's at those moments, just like in life or goals or business or family or friends, that you just have to say, well, what if I just do one more thing? Like, what if I just take one more step? What if I just run to that tree? What happens then? You get to the tree and say, okay, how about I just run to the bridge? And you get to the bridge and you say, just 200 more steps. And next thing you know, you're mile 75. And you're mile 75 to the next thing. You just keep pushing through. And then it is me running, but it's also, a team sport. Like, Pili I won't have like a full crew, but like Pili will be there on my side. Like if I need to do something, she'll be like, stop being baby and go do it or something. Or she'll say, okay, do you need this? And it'll be those points. But that's why you have like, you've been hiring, you have the right teammates for your side. So you don't have to constantly be worried about these things that you need to worry about, because you can only cover so much, right? So you have your basis. I'm going to get to the end of this race. In between, is everything going to be perfect? No, absolutely not. I mean, maybe we'll pour on Saturday. I don't know, but in that part, I'm getting it done. One way or the other, we're going start to finish. Yeah. And the route's going to change throughout the day, and I'm going to have to pivot. And when I pivot, it might help me. It might hurt me. I don't know, but I will work to the goal throughout the day with a plan, with the plan being that I'm going to get it done.
That's amazing, man. That's inspiring to me. It sounds like David Goggins, just reading his book. It's like the amount of perseverance you think you have is typically, your actual ability is typically a lot more than what you think it is. And it's just
he's got such a life story, right? Yeah, just such a life story. And you would hope nobody has to endure that kind of life, but he's a testament to it. He's gone through all that training, all these points, got that fat, got himself in shape, push yourself, push his limit. And it just shows like you can do a lot more. And it's like, I don't know, telling ourselves we're, we can't work out, or we're not good with money. Like, is that true? Or are you telling yourself that? Like, where's the narrative? I'm not good in relationships, or are you telling yourself that, or is that actually true? Yeah. 99% of the time you're telling yourself that, because you do, you control your thoughts, your feelings, what you say, what you do. And you can choose out of 35,000 thoughts a day. You can choose. Yeah, I love that. That's a great way to sum it up. As far as where you are today with your mental toughness was kind of what I would sum it up as, like mental toughness and fortitude and inner strength, and just your mentality about things. I think that's like a muscle, and you have to work that out. Yeah. So how did you get to that point of, having a strong mental muscle like that? You have to work on yourself, right? You do. And it is life experiences, because you can be mentally tough in a negative way. You can be mentally tough in a positive way. And you do have to daily work on yourself, because meditation, I heard something that kind of sets meditation to the level there, is that, you can be sad, you can be angry, you can have hatred, you can have all these feelings. Meditation isn't put there to eliminate those feelings. And if you try to eliminate those, you're probably going to have the opposite effect. But what it is there to do is to lessen the curve, right? So if you're upset, having mindfulness in the morning allows that curve not to be 4 hours of your day, and maybe just break it down to a half hour. If you're angry, it helps you. It's almost like mitigating that emotion, right? Yeah. Well, a lot with mental fortitude is just you understanding what's happening in the moment, and then being able to identify how to properly address it. Does it work perfectly? No, that's why it's a constant life learning balance. But we do set so much into really what happens in our day, and that it can almost just like ruin our week. But if you think about things that happen during the day, if something bad happened today, well, is it bad? Or like 5 years from now, would you even remember this moment? Yeah. Or are you setting it up like a big failure? And as younger, it would be like the end of the world. But now today, if you look at that, you wouldn't even remember it. So a lot is understanding, what's your purpose? What's your drive? Are you working to do good? And if you can continue with that mind track and have the mind ready to follow you along, your life falls in line too. Yeah. Yeah. And I think to that point, I've noticed time and again for myself personally, if there's ever a moment or
or a day or an event that in my mind initially like freaks me out or scares me or makes me nervous, I usually like initially I'm like, whoa, like this is going to be a crazy day. Like, did I sign up for too much? Did I overbook myself, or did I, sign up for something that I'm not prepared for? I've never done before. But then I remind myself, I'm like, hey, wait a minute, like, remember all these other things that you had never done before and you've now successfully completed, and you've gotten through that hurdle and you've been all right. And I constantly remind myself of that, of like also visualizing a successful outcome. And then, of course, inevitably, I also combine that with a little Tony Robbins, and I make my move, and I, do my little fist pump, and it gets me into a higher state of being where I'm like, all right, now I'm the higher state of Evan, and I know that I'm going to break through this hurdle. I'm going to either be successful or I'm going to learn something from it.
Yeah. If
And as
everybody
long as
could
you have
have that mindset right there, just, okay, either I'm going to get the result I want or I'm going to learn from it, the world would be magically different. Like just magically different, just what you said right there. But because you're doing that step, it's now why you have a successful business, successful podcast, you're doing development, you're doing all these things, right? Is it luck? No, it's that preparation.
Yeah. Yeah. And like we were talking about, it's, 80% mental preparation more than anything.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It's getting yourself in that higher state of being. So I'm glad we're diving into this. As far as speaking of podcasts, as far as your podcast, you and Pili have been doing that for a few years now. What have you learned doing that podcast? Like, what have been some of the key learning things that you have grown from your podcast?
Constant learning. The message here is in perseverance, right? So the luck is a word that gets thrown around a lot, but rarely is luck something that's just had on someone who's not ready for the challenge to be in front of them, right? So, that's why, like the lottery, people get millions of dollars, but they're not ready to use it accordingly. So it gets wasted. Well, a lot with people and their successes is that they have perseverance, just like you said, is that when something comes up, they use to maximize it in a way that can benefit others and benefit themselves. And if it goes to plan, they keep building upon it. And if it doesn't, they learn from the experience and figure out how to pivot. I had a guy in the show earlier who was homeless, and from homeless became a high-level exec at Disney, and then a high-level exec at Madison Square Garden, and then left them to be, a renowned speaker and best-selling author for a book to help young children as they grow from school into the real world, because he just felt that was his calling. And his name is John Walsh. He was an incredible dude, but he just felt that was an area where people come out and we're usually in a growth stage, like in our 30s and our 40s, when we're saying, okay, like now I'm trying to figure it out. Where most people, when they leave school, they're just thrown out into the universe. Like, okay, go figure it out now, without really a good action framework to do so. Right. And so when you do, you have that behind you, and you have that movement that really draws you through the line. It gives you the steps you need.
I love it. What as far as your like, what is your big why behind everything you do?
Oh, so family. I mean, and that's an easy out right there. But when you have kids, you identify that you want to give them the opportunity to create their life in ways that you weren't ready for when you were younger, right? So a lot with the multifamily, which is interesting, or even the meetups, or even doing this, is that, okay, daddy and mommy are on a conversation to help people, right? So we're buying these buildings to help people. Why are you helping people? So, well, that building right now, it's not a great place to live. So we're going to make it a better place to live, so the people that are there have better places that they can come home to. So their mommy and daddies and their kids can come home to, so they can have fun at the place they live and have a nice house. And we have a nice house here. We want the people, when we buy these buildings, to have a better house. And so talking about points about showing your children, and you can never really tell them what to do. It's not like, hey, do this and you'll be right. But you want to provide them with the framework so they can have the best opportunity to make the best choices for themselves as they go through life. So the big why is really just providing value to my family that can give them the best outlook on life to make the best decisions going forward.
Yeah, I think that's truly having that monumental impact of, creating a better life for your children, your family, and not only the family piece, but you can also help others through the multifamily piece, through the business side. You can not only create that generational wealth and income for your family and your investors, but you can also create a better life, a better household, a better experience for your residents. I think that's kind of the true win-win-win.
Oh, you think about it, the cool thing about multifamily is, so I go there, I make this a better place for people to live. So they're willing to pay more because this is better than having to live in the place they lived before. Now that benefits our investors, and our investors now are able to have a better opportunity now for what they're investing in to reach their financial goals. And along with that, then as operators, we're able to benefit from the overall value of the property increasing as well.
Yeah, I love that. That's really one of the biggest drivers behind what we do with Holiday Ventures is we're like, how can we make the world a better place through our developments, through our multifamily acquisitions, and our communities that we are empowering our residents, and turn around and help the community, and not only that, be able to help our future children when we get to that point, as you and Pili have. And I just think that is so powerful when your work can do good and you can do good for yourselves and your families at the same time.
I heard it prefaced, right? So, we're born not knowing anything. Then we're at a stage where we're figuring it out. Then we look back on life just hoping that what we did actually created value, a value that we're going to leave behind, right? And that's like a lot about, at a certain point, you realize that it is what I'm doing leaving an impact.
Yeah.
And that really can help your mission. If you're looking for a purpose, is what I'm doing going to have impact? What am I going to be remembered for, right? So, and if I'm remembered to my kids or my wife, and that can be plenty, right? Or if you want to have a different impact and you want to create something that can be a product like Ring Doorbell, whatever comes to mind, then that can be another impact.
So as far as the next steps for Yarusi Holdings, for you and Pili, for your goals for the next couple of years, where do you envision that for yourself and your business?
So I never try and think about it like as a unit basis. We want to push to get to 100 million assets under management. We know that can benefit helping a lot of people out there, but choosing the right opportunities. We're not aligned that we have to. We're not forced to find deals. We want to find great deals that work. And we know doing the steps, working with great partners like yourself, we'll be able to find good opportunities and what we can do and push value, and then continue to expand so we can truly push with what we're doing. So we have our Fit Rich Life newsletter. That's a lot of fun, that talks to our podcast, where we really focus on fit, rich, and wellness. And that just is really something that is dear to our message, where we had a podcast that was just real estate, but we found so much of our talk track was aligning with the mental fortitude and the health, and then it was like we were pulling away to just try and stay in the one lane. So we changed it to the Jason and Pili Project so we could talk about tactical advice for a fulfilling life. And that gave us the ability to really expand our horizon on reaching a base that we feel that we can help. And it's a lot about learning from, what we've done and also our mistakes, and helping other people curve, just like we had people help us in the multifamily world to you fast track, is that here's what we did, take it for what it is, but this process works. So try it out and see if it works for you.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, I think it's a combination of the impact piece, that where you can really help people the most, and also helping your investors through your assets under management, and being able to grow those simultaneously.
Correct.
So I want to dive into, we briefly touched on it, but I want to dive into Nightingale deal we just closed. You, myself, and Chad King, our three respective companies. It was quite the deal to get closed. Went through many lessons learned, but really glad we got it closed. Exciting deal. I just want to hear kind of your takeaways and lessons learned from it.
The takeaway is that perseverance prevails, right? There was a lot of pieces in this deal that would shy a lot of people away, right? It was that, but on the same side, it gave us more opportunity to succeed. And so having the right partners on board, so you having the affordable aspect, Chad just really being a go-getter and locking it up, and myself pulling from other experience, and we're able to put together a dynamic deal. But you're only as good as the team around you. And sometimes that team is on the other side, right? So closing, it wasn't the most hectic closing we ever had, but there was so many moving pieces because we had the additional affordable loan on top of the loan we had currently. There were just a lot of moving pieces, and then you put in COVID. So it was that patience always persists. We didn't get it done the day it was supposed to close, and it pushed it after the weekend, overnight mail, late paperwork, but it does work in your advantage, and it gives us more mental aptitude to look at the deal from where we are and have a better position to start with. So sometimes when things happen that aren't ideal, like closing getting delayed, it ultimately helps you, right? Because you can, instead of rushing into something, like we would have been there right before Labor Day, so nothing really would have happened over those couple of days. So now we were able to get into this deal with a clean perspective starting the day over. But you do want to get things done, but you want to go slow throughout the process. And their time is always pushed, right? So most deals, you're rushing to a point, but then you're waiting on everybody else, and then they rush you at that point, right?
Yeah.
But just because someone's rushing you doesn't mean it has to be rushed. We have to make sure that everything's accounted for. So you guys were, going through for the rent prorations, making sure the home loan was checked, but there was a lot of different team there, and everybody was working to the same goal. So knowing that everybody's on the same level, and it's not like a buyer versus seller or a lender versus with buyer, and knowing that those are components that are just parts of the deal, it makes it an easier mind frame for you to work to the closing. And now we have a great deal. We're at 57 cents a square foot on rent. The average in the market is 91 cents a square foot. We have a substantial amount of the buildings on the street. It's in a great path of progress. We have tenants that are being underserved. We can go in there and make minimal upgrades to make the units more attractive. We can do some nice things outside to make this a better place to live. So it's going to be a win across the board.
Yeah. And to give everyone a little background, so this was a kind of a pre-COVID deal initially. COVID kind of slowed the deal down and also gave us more time to make sure the numbers were working out. 65 unit deal in Louisville, Kentucky, but ended up COVID didn't really have the negative effect that everybody thought it would. So we ended up moving forward with the deal. Great, like Jason just said, was able to get it kind of under market because it was really being undermanaged by a nonprofit owner. And so there's tremendous value day one. We had massive demand on the investor side too, being able to fundraise this one really quickly. But really excited. We were talking about it before we jumped on. We need to do like a deep dive specific on this deal, you, me, and Chad.
That'd be fun.
Because I think there's a lot to tear apart, a lot of lessons learned, a lot of layers of complexity to this deal. And I know I learned a lot just from this one deal. And like we were talking about, we're really just getting started. We just closed about a week ago. And so now it's game plan implementation time, and where we can really turn over the property, make it what it's truly meant to be, and realize the value for the investors and be able to provide a better quality place to live for our residents.
Yeah, that'd be exciting. We could talk there, just talk about the mindset going in, how we're looking at it today, where's going to be the repairs that are going to, sometimes when you do things that are renovation for a property, they don't necessarily add value, but they create value in just the way the property looks from a performance standpoint. So if you're going to go in there and raise rents, on what basis? Are you making it a better place? Are you making it better to look at? Are you making it a more desirable place, a safer place? Okay, sure, I can understand that. But if you're just going in there to raise rents, well, what have you done to garner that ability to do so?
Well, in summary, I'm excited that Jason and I are getting the opportunity to partner together, and just being able to tag team this with Chad as well. But we'll deep dive on this on another episode. But guys, stay tuned for that episode. That's going to be an awesome episode. I'm excited. I'm sure we'll share some war stories on that deal too. But let's dive into our monumental questions.
Cool.
What does success mean to you?
It's constantly adapting, but it's finding fulfillment, right? So there's no marker out there which says, okay, I'm successful. It just having a life that can allow me to feel like I'm serving purpose and benefit others around me and create value for myself and my family and our future.
Yeah, I love it. And what about daily habits and morning rituals that you have?
So I wake up early. We have our book coming out, and I wake up at 4:32 because then I can say 4, 3, 2, 1, and I'm up and really pushing my day. I drink a gallon of water in the morning. I meditate for 5 to 10 minutes. I do affirmations. I may do some brain games like Lumosity, and then I'll go run generally 6 miles in the morning. And that gets me back. Kids are just getting up. Pili's just getting up. I switch off. I have the kids and some breakfast and some downtime with them. And Pili gets out and gets her workout. And so we're both able to start our day with the cleanest perspective you can with 3 kids, 6 and under.
I love it. I love the 4, 3, 2, 1. Also, congrats on the upcoming book.
Thank you.
When is that going to go live?
End of October. So it's going to be, we'll have it available on fitrichlife.com. It will be available on Amazon. It's how to master a fit rich life in 15 days. And it's 15 actionable steps that you can do to find fulfillment in your life, tactical advice that you need to, because everyone generally knows that they can do more, but sometimes it's that first actionable step that's keeping them on the sideline. And these are 15 steps that you can do, 10 minutes or less, do it each day to get you on board, to get you a better life that you want.
That's awesome. So how to live a fit rich life in 15 days? Is that what it is?
Yeah. How to master a fit rich life in 15 days.
I love it. Guys, be on the lookout for that.
Thank you.
This episode should air a little bit before that launch date.
Awesome. This is the first time I've mentioned on a show. So thank you. Yeah.
I love it. Well, that's exciting, guys. Be on the lookout for that. I'm sure it's going to be packed with value. Jason just brings value in everything he does. So last question, favorite book or book you are currently reading other than the one you're now writing?
I love it. So right now I'm reading Principles with Ray Dalio. It's really interesting. Have you read it?
Oh yeah. Love it.
So there's just certain points in there where you have to be in perspective. And a lot of it's with life right there is that the evolution of life like goes on. I think he talked about, like a pack of hyenas, like eating like a giraffe or something. And on the outside of nature, like from the outside in, it looks horrible, but in the evolution of nature, it's actually has to happen in that way for evolution to continue to evolve. Right. Yeah. And we're at a point of life where we're, one person in one moment of life and thousands of years and how many different ecosystems and how many different universes out there. Right. So just to take in perspective that we have a purpose in our life and we serve in this purpose to add value to that next step, and looking at his principles. It's really thought provoking.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. The book it's just literally the whole book is massive value for how to create your own principles in life and business, and just amazing lessons learned from a billionaire that's had major impact on the business world.
Yeah.
All right, last question. First off, phenomenal episode. I had a blast. Love talking mental fortitude with someone that I am inspired by. And so I appreciate you for that. So how can our Monumental listeners follow you, reach out to you, or connect with you?
Sure. So YarusiHoldings.com, that's our website, or Jason Yarusi on Instagram.
All right, guys, you heard it here. Jason Yarusi at Instagram, and connect with Jason. He's bringing massive value. And also stay tuned for that episode where we dive deep into Nightingale, and also check out his book. And guys, do not forget, leave us a review, share the episode if you enjoyed today's episode, tag Jason, tag myself, let us know you're listening, tag us on Instagram. And guys, with that, have a monumental day.